Professor Baptiste when I enrolled as a freshman at Southern University. He was on the faculty, music faculty. I didn't meet him right away. I formally met him about a year later. I wasn't in his area. I was an applied trumpet major. He was clarinet or woodwinds. I didn't know at that time that he was a composer. I didn't know what kind of influence he would have on my life would be incredible, philosophically unbelievable, the influence he had. But as I met him, as I grew to know him, I sort of fell in love with what he was about, and he took me on as a sort of protege. And at that point, my compositional side was emerging rapidly. I was going away from the applied trumpet. I was a learned trumpet player by that time, and in early college I had already accomplished so much on trumpet, but I had no application. I didn't want to be jazz, I didn't want to be classical. I just wanted to practice the horn and develop the technique, and that's all. It had no application for it whatsoever. So, but I found myself more and more into composition. He became my first teacher, eventually, my first unofficial teacher. My undergraduate program didn't have a composition program. That's why I went to Texas after I graduated from composition. He became my unofficial teacher, and I learned so much, and I had access to one of 3 jazz orchestras all the time. So when I wrote something, I was able to have it played almost immediately, which was very useful. I developed a great deal of orchestrational technique at that point, but mainly for the jazz orchestra, not for the full orchestra. That came later in graduate school. But he was my mentor. He was also my mentor philosophically. There was a spiritual side of me that was emerging rapidly also. I was turning away from the material world that it meant so little to me. Everything was so black and white, literally, in Louisiana. The city was very polarized, very racist, very, it wasn't my kind of place. And at that point, in undergraduate school, my perspective was very myopic, shall we say. I had a black perspective, and that's all I saw. Growing up in Louisiana, there was black and white. There was a black environment, the white environment. I didn't understand nothing about the white environment. I didn't really want to. And I was in all black environments from the time I was born until all the way through college. Every school, elementary school, junior high school, senior high school, and college, they were all black, so I didn't know anything about black people. That's all I really wanted to know. That's all that meant anything to me at that point in my life. But Albert Baptiste began to open up my eyes to things that were bigger, much larger. And he expanded my vision tremendously. He's the one who encouraged me to go to graduate school. I had an opportunity. I went to the University of Texas. But as I said, he became a compositional mentor, and I was all about jazz at that point. I had no classical perspective whatsoever, not a technical one at that point. It was good that I went to the University of Texas. I had several choices, the University of Southern Illinois, several other schools were interested in me, but I ended up going to the University of Texas, mainly because my chair was the first black person to graduate with a doctorate from the music program at the University of Texas. So I went there. I couldn't leave. I couldn't. Even when I was there, when I was composing my earlier pieces, you will find quotes of Albert Baptiste's music in them. That's the kind of influence he had on me. And they're still there. I never took them out. I would argue that his influence is probably still with me. It would almost have to be, since his influence was so profound and so musical and spiritual. My belief in the higher being, my belief in God was expanded tremendously as a result of being with him. My interest in Rosicrucianism expanded as a result of him. Everything about me at that point was modified by him. That's basically it.